There you go.
Ooh, okay. So just a reminder of where we've been and where we're going. Our first session, we had death in Christian theology, and I doubled down on this past Sunday, as many of you heard. And then last week, Maeve led us in some wonderful round table conversations about death and dying, and there's a lot more of that conversation that could continue to take place within and among our community. This week, we're thrilled to have Ellen with us, and I'll tell you a moment about who Ellen is. And then next week we will have another guest presenter who is Beth Collins, friend of Elizabeth and Liz, right? Elizabeth, palliative care specialist. I think she's retired now, but she started palliative care at Leahy and Leahy Healthcare, and she will be talking about death and dying and death in a death-phobic culture. So, and she did ask for us towards the end if there are any specific questions that you have around hospice and palliative care that you're particularly hoping she addresses. She's happy to field those. So if something comes up throughout the evening that you think, oh, I really would love for her to address that, she said she'd be happy to, and I'll give her a heads up. But tonight we're thrilled. Thank you, Michelle, for connecting us to Ellen. Ellen is the president and CEO of Honoring Choices Massachusetts. She had a formal law practice with a focus in guardianship and conservatorship, and recognized that the majority of adults that she related to did not know they could direct their healthcare choices and make a personal plan. She closed her law practice and started Honoring Choices Massachusetts to ensure everyone has equal access to healthcare planning to align the best possible care with their goals, priorities, and care preferences. She convenes the Consumer Health Equity Advisory Group and co-chairs the Guardianship Serious Illness Advisory Group with the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association. So such good work that you are doing, Ellen. We're so grateful that you can be with us this evening. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll just kick it off. First of all, we want to make sure everybody can hear. Can everybody hear pretty decently? Great, and can see. Terrific, thank you. Sometimes big rooms. I'm so excited to be with you, but I'm also equally excited that Dr. Beth Collins is following next week. She is a longtime friend and colleague, and I didn't quite know that you were gonna see her, and she's wonderful. She does incredible work and did incredible work for a lot of families and folks who were experiencing serious illness and were at the end of life. She's just a treasure, and so I'm sure she'd love any of your questions. So that'll be fun. But I'm delighted to be here tonight, and our focus is a little different. We're really going to talk about planning and the roadmap for all of that and where you are on it. Everybody's in a different place. So we're going to show you the process that we've been using, and then very happy to take questions. I'm going to stop once in a while and just see if you have thoughts or questions. Sometimes your experiences in life are the most interesting in terms of helping each other with situations. So we'll do that. Please feel free to jump in. Let me get the slide deck up.
While you're doing that, Ellen, I'm sitting next to you. You can't see me, but I have the mic in case anyone needs, in case you can't hear the questions, I'll be here and speaking into the mic.
That'd be great, because now you're all minimized for me in a little box on the screen, so it's hard for me to see hands go up. So thank you for helping. So as Reverend Will said, I'm Ellen DiPaolo. I actually live in Weston, but Honoring Choices is a consumer nonprofit organization that's been running about 12 years now. And it's a statewide organization, and our focus is just letting people know that now's the time to think about planning and planning throughout your life around your healthcare choices. So I'm delighted again to be with you. Tonight I'll just share with you what Honoring Choices does. we always start these, what we call consumer webinars with making sure people understand their rights and their own decision-making powers. We kind of get it now when we're well and doing fine, but as our healthcare can change and our care preferences change, sometimes the decision-making powers can get lessened by the organizational forces around us. So we always like to tell people what their rights are. And if you're caring for folks, if you find yourself as a caregiver, this is another way to look at how that might support you. We'll tell you about our Who's Your Agent program, which is this, we hope, simple, structured approach to planning that everybody can use. We have one approach, and it works both for consumers and for all of the care providers we support as well. We'll talk about the 5 planning documents so you can see the progression of your own plan. And again, many of you may have done this or even know about it. So please let me know if there are more detailed questions than what we're doing here. But we'll show you the 2 toolkits that we use that anybody can use. Many times when we do our consumer webinars here, we find that these toolkits get spread wide and far to anyone in your family who's 18 years old and above can do this. If you're a caregiver, it's you and everyone else, and certainly everyone in the community. So feel free to share. We'll show you where the resources are. So as Reverend Wells said, in my work and as a guardianship attorney, it just became really obvious to me that people were in a place, who often worked with a couple, say a husband and a wife who found that, let's say the husband had a newly diagnosed serious illness. Something came upon them. He was now unable to make decisions for himself. And because that gentleman had not done a 5-minute healthcare proxy to appoint his wife as his healthcare agent, we were now in a court proceeding, in a guardianship proceeding, because that's how the state works here. And it was just heartbreaking to me because people would say to me, we didn't know we could do that. We didn't know we could do that without an attorney, and actually do more than that and make a plan. So so I closed the law practice and said, that's enough. And I wanted to see if we could really statewide be able to say it's your health care and it's your choice, and be able to inform and empower everybody to say you got a lot of control in this. Not always, but you certainly can plan and make sure you want to have your voice be heard about what you want. Make a plan, and we do that. And at the same time, we empower and work with consumers equally. We work the other side, which is to support all our doctors and healthcare providers, give them the same tools, the same really accurate information, so that when you talk together, they'll be able to hear you and connect you to the right care in the community. So that's our mission. And did that come across? Everybody can hear well enough with the speakers? Yes, okay.
We should applaud your mission.
No, it's okay. Thank you. All right, great. So everything we're going to talk about tonight, by the way, is on our website. So Michelle did an incredible job. You have a packet a day number 1 packet in front of you, which is terrific. And there's much more on the website. But so it's all there. And then here's what we do. We develop this structured approach. We come up with a lot of free tools. And we say to all of these partners here, primary care and all the community groups, the hospitals, the assisted living, you can see the circle, all of these folks are our partners. And, we say, look, help us do this. Go and talk to people in your community, in your hospitals, in your churches, everywhere, and make sure they understand that they have equal access to healthcare planning. So the partners just take the tools, like what you're doing now, and then, start to work on engaging adults in conversations with our professional partners and connecting them to care. And this is what we talk about very simply, that everyone is on a journey, a healthcare journey, and we all want the same thing, to be able to get the best possible care. The way we look at this is it's a journey that starts at 18 to promote everyday wellness, and as we age, to be able to manage our health needs and chronic illness, and for many, being able to live with serious illness and think about end of life care. So everybody's on that journey, and we just think everybody needs a plan. That healthcare plan is your roadmap, to your personal roadmap to be able to talk to your family, your friends, be able to talk to your care providers to get the care you want. And making a plan helps everyone. I know we've kind of been taught over the last 20 years to wait till we're sick to do some of this planning. But it misses the whole point of it under Massachusetts law, which says at 18 you can make a plan because illnesses and accidents they're just part of life. They just happen. Whether many years ago, my 18-year-old son who was in Connecticut at college and had to play rugby, really got into a good head smashing competition with someone else, was in the hospital, was unconscious for a while. And, at 18, even as a parent, even though I'm his parent, I was not his healthcare agent. I didn't have the right to actually reach into the hospital and say, how's he doing? That was an interesting lesson for me to remember that really this is just a lifelong journey here. And we want to do some planning to certainly to protect my son at that point about the care he's going to get. It supports me as a family member, and it certainly helps all those care providers. So I want to just take a minute to talk about your rights. And some of this you're going to say is really basic, but this gets harder as we get older and in some ways as we have more challenging health issues. And to remember that everyone everyone in your life is presumed competent. Competent means they're presumed to have the ability to make their own decisions and to have that power. And we can do that up until the point where the actual court determines that we don't have that ability or capacity. So it's a big spread, right? Even though we give our doctors the permission and in the law to make those determinations about if we have the ability or not to make decisions, that can be challenged. And that's why it's really we work very hard in Massachusetts to say everybody has the right, no matter where they are on this journey, whether they have the ability to make those decisions, whether they can get the care they need. That's a different thing. You always retain your right. And one is, of course, the first one is to have adequate information to make informed choices. This is just getting harder and harder in terms of the way our system is working, and we have 15, 20-minute, 30-minute appointments. It's sometimes hard to get the information we need to feel like we can go home and think about it and then decide what kind of care we want. But that's a right. Certainly, universal right across this country is the right to accept and refuse medical treatment. You can always say yes or no. That is your choice. In the law, we always have the right to think about this plan that we're doing now. And one of those first very clear rights is to appoint a person. And in Massachusetts, we call that person a healthcare agent. And the agent is the person, and the healthcare proxy is the document where we appoint that person to give them the authority to make decisions for us. So it's not just that document, but we've got a bunch of other documents, at least 4 others, that really help us make decisions at different points in our healthcare. You have a very solid right to update that plan. Change your mind anytime you want to. You can tear up documents and start again. And I don't know if people understand that sometimes. That's the control that you have, and the control to review your own medical record. It's a good thing to check in once in a while to see what's actually in that medical record, to make sure it really reflects where you are and if you've made some decisions about treatment, if they're in that record. And then, of course, you have the right to have your choices honored all throughout your lifetime. So it's common sense in some ways, but when you put it all together, it's a pretty strong position in terms of being able to try to direct some of your choices over your lifetime. Let me know if there are any questions about that, but we like to start with the rights. Okay, so what you'll see on our website is our Who's Your Healthcare Agent program. And 12 years ago, I was just bamboozled by the amount of terms and misinformation around planning. And this really prevented people from doing it, quite frankly. We still have a strong cultural message that says, kind of wait till you're sick and then figure it out. And what we've certainly learned is that it's much easier to do this as a structured approach and to do it the same, give the same information, the same tools to both consumers and care providers. There was it still is, but for a long time, there was a theory that consumers needed one set of information and doctors needed another set of information. And that just didn't help us communicate. So that's what this program is about. You can make your own plan. You can help anybody you want to also make it. So when you go on the website and on the resources page, you'll see these three divisions. One is this step-by-step process, kind of the roadmap for where you are and where you're going. Some free toolkits, and then some documents and tools to personalize your own plan. And you can, I want to say before we do anything else that this planning piece, it's voluntary. You don't have to do it. And moreover, if somebody asks you for a document like a healthcare proxy or a durable power of attorney or a MOLS form to say we need that to treat you, that's just not under Massachusetts law. It's a voluntary process, and so are these documents. But they're incredibly helpful to help everyone around you know what's important to you, what your priority is as you age and as you meet challenges with healthcare. So here's a roadmap we came up with one of our incredibly wonderful doctors, palliative care doctor, Dr. Frome is his name, who works at Dana-Farber and a few other places, about how we look at these conversations. And I just want to offer this to you as a roadmap so that you or anybody, your adult children, your people you care for, can see where you are. And you can see at the top of this graphic, there are two divisions. There's what we think are the important conversations and what are the planning tools that accompany those conversations. Very simple. So at the biggest part of this is not end of life. It's naming a healthcare agent, because that's what's one of the most important and protective things you can do for yourself. If you're not able to speak to your doctors, even for a short time, you got someone to step up and make sure you get good care. And that's the healthcare agent. And we do that in a Massachusetts healthcare proxy. I believe you have those in the getting started toolkit that you have, and Michelle has made you, I think, a separate one as well. But if you want to start anywhere, that's where we start. And many of you may have already done this step, which is great. And if you haven't, my understanding is if you are ready to do this tonight after the presentation, Michelle and the group will help you get this done. We'll tell you more as we go. But so we name an agent, and then in this state, that's all that healthcare proxy does. It just names the agent and gives them the power. But how does that agent know what to do in terms of what you want for care? So that's that second piece where you want to talk to people around you about your care preferences. And in this state, there's no legal document for that. So it's a personal document. We have made a personal directive here, also in your getting started toolkit, to just write down what's important to you. It's been such an incredibly helpful document for folks to talk about with family. Say, if I get sick tomorrow, here's some of the things that are important to me, and write them down. It's a great discussion starter as well. So that personal directive's in there. The other thing that we need is the durable power of attorney at some point. We're going to talk about that, but that appoints a financial decision maker.
Ellen, it
Yeah.
looks like you have a question or.
Can you make that point?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna let everybody know that the personal directive she's talking about is in the stapled piece that you have. It's the second to the last page, is the personal directive.
And we're going to go through that as we go. Right. Yeah, terrific. And it's become more important, this document. I'm going to tell you why later. It's hard to hear you, Michelle. Is that you talking?
Oh, can you tell
Were
me?
you able to hear me, Ellen?
I
Okay.
think so. Yes, I think so. Is there a question about it, or should I keep going?
I think you can keep going.
Okay, great. So this again, we just want to show you the 5 documents and some of the conversation guides here. So at any point, we're starting to move down the the inverted triangle here, and the other part is talking to your providers about your goals and priorities. That's not easy sometimes. So we have some conversation guides for you, which the first one is in your getting started toolkit. And it's been really useful, we hear from consumers, to at least feel like they can go into their doctor's office and think about what they want to talk about. You've got a limited amount of time. What are your questions? What are most important to you? What do you want to know that day? And so you can take a look at those conversation guides. There's a whole series of them on the website. And then as we progress some more, not everybody's going to get here, but some people are diagnosed with a serious illness. Serious illness has a looser definition. It's something Dr. Collins can tell you a lot about next week, but it is a life-limiting ailment or treatment. Or illness or condition, and that you probably will not recover from. You can live with for a while, but you're in a different space. And the MOLS form stands for Medical Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. That's another one of these documents where if you're in a serious illness mode, you sit down with your clinician and you can make some decisions about life-sustaining treatments like CPR, like ventilation, and how you want to be treated. We'll go over that form in a little bit. But
Hey, Ellen, can you hear me? It's
Yes.
Michelle. I just want to pause for one moment because I put the packets on everybody's chair, but it might be helpful if I just let them know, what's in there and in what order, so they know, when you're speaking
Go
about.
ahead, Michelle. Go ahead, Michelle.
So the first packet is the Getting Started Toolkit. And that does include the healthcare proxy and the personal directive. It also, but behind that packet is another just single page healthcare proxy that you could sign today if you wanted, if you don't have one now and you are ready to appoint a healthcare agent. It also has a little thicker piece of paper with a healthcare proxy wallet card that you can, it's not a legal document, but you could have that in your wallet that lists who your agent is and how to contact them, so that it's always on you, on your person. But it is important that you have the actual document, to back that up somewhere available as well. And then behind that is a list of like a fact sheet about durable power of attorney that Ellen's going to go over. And then also the last thing is the MOLS form, which is something you do at your provider's office. Ellen will explain it more, but I just wanted you all we wanted you all to be able to see what it looks like and see what it's comprised of, and have that in front of you as she speaks about it. So I just wanted to, I'm sorry I didn't do that to start, Ellen, but I wanted to just step in and make sure they know what papers are in the packet they have.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. It's great that you have such a comprehensive packet. And if it brings up, and one of the reasons we like that you have them is if there are questions that come out of that, please just, again, I can't see your hands go up. So Michelle, feel free to, or anyone, just say there's a hand, there's a question. So this is our roadmap right now. And I wanted to do it more quickly, but again, just flip through it quick. So with the healthcare agent, we're doing, we're must in Massachusetts, it is a must to appoint that person in a healthcare proxy. A spouse or a friend does not have legal authority to make decisions for you unless their name is in that healthcare proxy. So you have one, and we have it in many languages. The beauty of this proxy is it also avoids guardianship down the road. If you become incapacitated, you're not able to make decisions for yourself, and the court sees that, and they are able to appoint a guardian to make decisions for you. But if you can avoid it, it's worth avoiding the legal process. And then, of course, talking to your people about what you want for care, that personal directive or living will, anything that's called, you may have heard that term, that's in your packet. Also, the fact sheet about the durable power of attorney is in there. That has become really important lately. We are seeing in people who are quite sick and in the hospitals and then need to be discharged to, say, post-acute care, like a nursing facility. If they may not have the ability to make decisions anymore about their money and signing contracts to be able to get care. So having someone appointed in a durable power of attorney to do that for you helps at that point make that transition much smoother, or else we have to stop and go to court and do a conservatorship. Again, this is even a tougher legal process and takes a lot of time. Really worth doing that document ahead. And then, of course, the conversation guides are in the kit. We have a next steps toolkit, which we'll just refer to tonight. Mostly we're going to stick with the getting started toolkit, but that has a lot more information in it. And we have a lot of those consumer conversation guides. You know, take a look. If you feel like you're going to the doctor's office and you want to have some support on some questions, sometimes one or two of them can be useful. And then the end of life thing will show you the most form, and we have many partners here who work in end of life and who work in hospice care and comfort and can offer lots of great information on that. So in our Who's Your Agent program, that's what we call this whole thing. The two toolkits, as we said.
1 second,
Sorry?
Can you just ask her, the durable power of attorney has to be done with an attorney. I mean, it's not like the healthcare proxy form that you can just sign. I think most people know, but just in case.
So Ellen, this question is from Michelle. So
Yeah.
the DPOA either need to be done with an attorney, or can it be notarized, or what is the process of getting that recognized?
That's a really good distinction, and you'll see as we go through. The healthcare proxy is self-doing. You do not need a lawyer. You do not need a notary. You need two witnesses, and we'll show you that. The durable power of attorney, we recommend you do with an attorney, although it's not, you don't have to do that by law in Massachusetts. You can download an online Massachusetts durable power of attorney. But I really think it's worth having a conversation for legal counsel on that, to really talk about the kind of powers that you want to give to someone, and really make sure you're safeguarding your estate. So we recommend it. It needs a signature and it will need a notary. But if you're talking to an attorney, they'll take care of that. Good? Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to know about these documents, but and they can be really confusing, and especially when you go online, you're not seeing Massachusetts law sometimes, so it gets more confusing. So if you haven't started this process yet, or you know someone who hasn't started it, you just start with this toolkit, the Getting Started Toolkit. It's been proven to be easy to work with and pretty popular, and we're just focusing on the healthcare proxy and the personal directive. And then after you get that base of information, you can move to that next steps toolkit. And it's a different type of toolkit. It's not a downloadable kit. It's got so much more information on it about managing illness as you age and living well with serious illness. But there's a lot there for you. So everyone can start with this very simple conversation. So I just want to go over this toolkit. If you haven't done this yet, I don't like to ask who's done a proxy and who's not, but I will go through it somewhat at a good pace, but please slow me down if you need more information about the proxy. So the toolkit is supposed to be self-doing, do it yourself. We always want people to think about choosing an agent if they can. That is an incredibly protective document. You know, during COVID, that was the one document where, because it's a legal document, where our providers had to stop and say, we have an agent here. We need to call that agent and get that agent to make medical decisions for us. Otherwise, it's so hard to have that protection. So we focus on the proxy in number one, and number two, that's that personal directive or living will. What matters to you? That document has become such a family-friendly document in terms of just starting a conversation with someone. And the conversation really starts as, look, if I get sick tomorrow, here's what I'd like you to do for me. Here's the things that are important to me. So that's in the do-it-yourself personal directive. And then we always want to make sure we're taking these documents and putting them right into action. They will only do you so much good, you know, in a file. We have to get them to the doctors and get them in the medical records. And that's where we can talk about care. So as I mentioned before, in Massachusetts, the law makes this much easier for us here. The person you choose that's your agent. And that's why we talk about this as a Who's Your Agent program. And the legal document is the proxy. You will hear people talk about that interchangeably, but now you know what the law says. And in the Getting Started Toolkit, just as we said in step 1, we really focus on that agent. Can you choose a person you trust, anyone at all, to be your healthcare agent? And if you can, let's talk to them about what you want and get them appointed in that proxy. Now, for a good 30% of the people in this state, they're just not able to choose an agent. There may be no one to choose. They may not have the ability to do that. They may, for cultural reasons, not feel comfortable to do that. And what we say here is, you know what, that's okay. You can just start with step 2, with the personal directive. But if you can choose an agent, that's what we do first. So as we said, that agent is the advocate. If you're not able to make decisions for yourself, that person steps right up. Nothing has to happen. It doesn't have to be invoked in a legal process. They can just step right up to say, you know, my husband fell off his bike one morning, his, road bike, and hit his head, cracked his helmet wide open, broke his shoulder, broke his hip. And no one ever said to me, are you the healthcare agent? So they don't always check. But because and the doctor was talking to me about, okay, we have to get him into surgery. You have a decision to make. Do we get him hip A where he can walk again, or hip B where he can walk and ride? I knew the answer to that question. It was going to be B. But my 2 adult sons were with me who were over 18. I was not the healthcare agent. And they said, Mom, what are you crazy? We have to go with A. We have to get him to walk again. So the poor doctor, the blood dropped from his face because he needs one decision in the event that there is no legal. I, as the spouse, didn't have any more power than my sons to make a decision in that thing. And they need one, or else they're going to make the decision for us. So we were able to work that out as a family. But that's why we do this, so that in a situation like that, if I were the healthcare agent, I could just step right up and make that decision. And that's how that works. And as I mentioned, in this state, we have to appoint in order to give that agent actual legal power. Right? Doesn't mean that families can't do what we did, which is just decide and move forward. But in the dicier situations, it's good to have that agent. Who can be an agent? Anyone you trust, neighbors, family, people in your congregation. The person who can't be an agent is a person who works where you're the patient, where you are a patient, unless that person is related to you. So you get a really wide open field here. We find a lot of folks, are not able, they don't have family to choose, but they may be in groups like a congregation, where there might be folks who can help them. And we just want to make you aware of that. So the agent really, your agent makes the decisions that you want. That's how this works, not necessarily what the agent wants. And that agent has enormous power in Massachusetts to be able to talk to the doctors, discuss the treatments, look at the medical records, and they make the choices. They tell the clinicians, what the clinicians' advice about treatments, what that person would want for care. And if often what happens in a emergency or a hospital situation, someone's very sick, but the minute they start to get better, they have the full right to make their own decisions. So that's when the agent would step back and be able to, and a person can make their own decisions. So this is just basic stuff. Is there any questions just on this? You probably have a good sense of this, but I'm happy to
I have
stop.
a couple of questions. Or you want to go first?
Yeah, I was just curious how is it determined that you're able, if you are recovering, how is it determined that you're able to make the decisions for yourself?
So the question is, if you are recovering, how is it determined that you were able to make decisions for yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question, because a lot of people would like to try to make that decision. But again, under the law, it is a medical determination whether you have that ability to make decisions or not. So if you're ever unsure, you can always ask a clinician, a doctor, whoever, it's usually the attending physician, whoever's helping, to weigh in on it and see if they have capacity. Usually it's pretty obvious in terms of people being able to be very clear. When my husband came out of surgery, they asked him a couple of questions and all he wanted to do was say, "Is my bike okay?" So it took him about a couple of hours to be able to say who he was and where he was. And it's usually that kind of a quick test. But sometimes I worry about that decision making when it's being made by lay people, say in nursing facilities or assisted livings. And that's where you can say it's not, you don't have that ability. It's a medical determination capacity.
And as someone who recently experienced it, my sister was my agent,
Mhm.
but when I came to, I was then interviewed daily by my doctors, and they determined that I could make my own decision.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Great. Lori, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a practical one about if you have, you said this needs to be on file with your doctor. If you have multiple doctors, it has to be on file with all your doctors.
Yeah.
We're
It's-
taking a hospital and you're unconscious and you have that wallet card and they called your agent. Does your agent have to produce
Like proof or?
yeah, evidence
Yeah.
that they're
Did
know, I heard that. Yeah, I think I got it both. So I'll start backwards, which is that if your agent typically doesn't have to, I'm not sure we're asking for proof yet. But if it's on record, it helps. If it's in your medical record, and I'll talk about how that gets accessed. What we say lately is, since everybody's carrying phones, take a picture of this document. Now, it's not going to be legally binding unless they can download it and print it. But if so, what was it? A woman told me the other day that she was actually it was a card story about where she was called to the hospital because her father had fallen in a grocery store, hit his head, was really disoriented. They found the wallet card in his wallet and they called her. And when she got there, she was all worried because all she had was the card and not the legal document. And she said nobody even asked her for it, but it was in the medical record. So she went home and took a picture of it on her phone. And when she came back, she said that sufficed. It made everybody very happy. Yeah, we're not at the point where we're asking for proof yet. But I do want to talk about the where. So this is the Honoring Choices Healthcare Proxy. We just want to make you aware of it.
I have another question.
Oh, well, let me just finish this one for a second. I just want, while you're looking at it, I just want you to see the form. But I want to tell you about the form and answer the question about where to put it. If you give it to your primary care, excuse me, your primary care person, they put it in your record and it has some legs. All of our primary cares now are being connected to different places, different hospitals, different systems. We don't always know that, but all those folks are able to access it. So the question I ask all the time when I go somewhere is, who can see my documents? And that gives me a sense of who'll be able to access them. And I want to say that sometimes I sometimes go to Leahy Hospital, for instance. And what I learned somewhat recently is that their system in the regular hospital is different from their system in the emergency department. And that may be true of a lot of hospitals. So the emergency department may not be able to see those records. So if you're someone who frequents the hospital or you know someone who frequents the hospital, you walk a copy of your healthcare proxy in there and have them put it in the record. We're still responsible here to get those proxies into people's hands. We don't have a system yet where it's all connected.
Susan, what was your question?
I wanted to make a comment about where, actually having gone through that quite a bit with my my father-in-law and very recently my mother-in-law is, there was a very, the emergency room did not have records of her most form or her healthcare proxy form. Something happened in the middle of the night. Our fallback was have it as many places as you can think of, including something by the front door on the refrigerator, that's a packet called the File of Life, where you can stuff everything in that the EMTs can look for if they come and grab it, but don't let that be your only copy, because you'll never get it back.
That's great. That's a great practical information. And that's what we say. This document belongs to you. You can make as many copies as you want. The copies are as valid as the original. And that's what we have to do. People put it in the glove compartment in their cars. The wallet card is helpful. They put it in their, whatever they carry as a pocketbook or a bag. And it helps to keep the hospitals honest with it. Their systems change. And so you want to periodically check, when you go see a doctor, who is do you see my healthcare proxy in there? And who else can see it?
I have an anecdote that I'd like to share. Okay. So I have on my lock screen, because I actually carry my phone more than I do my wallet, believe it or not. Like if I go out for a walk, I'll have my phone, not my wallet. And it has, in case of emergency, I have my emergency contact, Flo, and her number, allergies, medical conditions, and kind of like to direct, an EMT or an emergency room doctor in the case that something did happen to me. And then I also have multiple copies of my healthcare proxy, and Flo has one just for herself. So if you're not wanting to do the wallet card, or if you think, oh, it's going to get crumpled or I'll forget it, you can always put it on your phone as a lock screen.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Great idea. And I think, and as I'm saying now, because it's just getting more common, if you show people that form on your phone, it might suffice. Some of our hospitals are saying we need the hard copy. EMS absolutely needs the hard copy. So you want to put it on, as somebody mentioned, on the door, on the refrigerator. Apparently they specifically look, but making lots of copies in lots of different ways is a great idea. So this is our proxy, and this is the one you are free to do tonight if you like. If you haven't done one yet, it's very simple. I'm just going to walk you through it really fast in the interest of time. You guys have such wonderful comments and conversation. I want to leave lots of room for that. But as you see, a proxy is really simple. It's your name, your address. You just need to know the name and address and phone numbers of who you're choosing as your agent. It is recommended you have a backup agent, an alternate agent, who steps up if your original agent in number 2 cannot be notified. So you don't have to have an alternate. Sometimes it's hard to pick 2 people, but it's a good idea to have backup like that if you can. And if you can't do it right away, maybe you can always come back and add to this proxy. So these are the first 3 questions on the proxy. Number 4 is, this is just you're giving your authority. You're saying, I have the power to make any and all decisions about my care, and I'm giving that same authority to my agent, including making decisions about life-sustaining treatment. Now, if there's some way you want to limit someone's authority, like, I don't want this person to be able to admit to a nursing facility or authorize psychotic drugs. I want other people involved. You can do that. You can limit it right there, right on your proxy. If you have an agent where you feel like they can make all the decisions in talking with my physicians, that gives people a lot more freedom to be able to deal with what's in front of them. So if you're not limiting authority, you just leave it blank. And the only trick to this document is you sign it in front of 2 witnesses. And this is where sometimes people have invalid proxies because they don't quite do this step. But you would have your witnesses right in front of you. We can't do it online. They have to be right in front of you in your sight line. You sign the document, you date it, you give that pen to the first witness. And a witness is anybody 18 and older. All they're doing is watching you sign, and they're saying, well, this person looks to be about 18 or older, of sound mind, and nobody's forcing them to do this. That's all a witness is doing. So witness 1 signs, we give the pen to witness 2, they sign, and you have a valid healthcare proxy. If you want, at some later date, you can ask your healthcare agent to also sign this. This is optional in Massachusetts, but what we find is the doctors like to know that the person you chose kind of accepted the job, wants to be your agent. So the other piece of this is the two witnesses cannot be your healthcare agent or your alternate agent. So you can't be a witness and an agent at the same time. And that's why tonight, if you wanted to fill this out, they're going to supply you with two people who are not your agent or alternate. Any questions about this form? I'm going to imagine a lot of you have done this already, but if you're helping other people or just wanting to share this with family, we wanted you to have the information. This is the wallet card. It's been incredibly effective, this little thing. We used to, if you can take it and use it, if you want to print it on thicker paper, I think Michelle already did that for you. It's available in 6 languages. I can't tell you how many stories we've heard of, especially my son is a critical care nurse, and he works for MedFlight. So they often show up at scene calls and really tough situations. And again, you got someone who's not able to speak for themselves, so they look in the wallet. And they found this card several times. It's been such a blessing for families because they're able to call the agent even before they get to the hospital. So all you have to know is this is for information only. It does not take the place of the document. It's just there as a backup, but you have to have a legal, valid healthcare proxy to use the card. Questions? Okay. So I especially want to point this out that if you or someone you know is not able to choose an agent, it's incredibly common. It's about 30% of the people in Massachusetts. You know, we just live in a world sometimes where we outlive family, or family doesn't live near us, or that's not going to be the right agent for you. What we like to say to folks is, you know, if you can't do this, it's okay. No problem. The most important thing is that we know what you want for care. And you can write that down in a personal directive. Now, again, this is step 2 in the Getting Started Toolkit, and we're writing what matters to you. And it tells others what you want for care. But and anybody can do this, everybody should do it. But it's especially important if you don't have an agent, because then this is where you start. This is where you write it. Or you think about what's important to you. You know, it's so funny how much people have already thought about what they want to happen as they get older or in emergency situations. Start to write that down for others. Tell them how to help you. As an attorney, I can tell you that I first started with this personal directive when I was a guardianship attorney, and I was at the bedside of a lot of folks who were in the last phases of life. And the families would hold on to this document so tightly because here was the voice of their family member that they loved. It was in their own handwriting. It was telling them, offering them instructions and some personal messages about what they wanted for care. So it's been a very powerful little document, and we're welcome to really take a look at it. But again, especially if there's nobody who's able to step up as an agent, at least we can do this document and give it to your doctor, give it to the primary care, so at least the primary care knows what you want for care. This is what it looks like. It's 2 pages. It's just a fill-in that you can use and skip over some questions and write on the back, but it's personal. It's not legal. You will find in most other states, like the New England states, this is legally binding on care professionals, but in this state, it's not. We don't have a law like that. But if the law in Massachusetts says that if your doctors know what you want for care, if you've told them, if it's written down, even if you've just told them, it's helpful if it's written down, but that they should do their best to get that for you. So this is incredible guidance for everybody who works with us. So, and we like to talk about it as a personal letter to others, to really look at it that way. 1 is more about your personal beliefs. 2 is anybody you want to inform. We find as we talk to congregations that sometimes they want to inform their pastors, their ministers, their reverends, other people in the community. You can all write that down. It doesn't mean they're responsible for anything. It's just people you want to know, you know, if you get sick. The 2nd page is about your medical care. And again, this is a place just we started this because a lot of folks who were older felt that, they were doing well managing their health. But if something happened tomorrow, who was going to know what they wanted for care? So this is what that personal directive was about. You can talk about your current condition, put a med list on this if you want to, and if you want, start to talk about what you'd want for care if you became so sick that we were in that life sustaining treatment part where we really were looking at CPR or not CPR, things like that. This is personal, so you can write personal messages. You sign it, you date it. There's no witnesses here, right? The important thing is that we update it because things are going to change and your preferences will change. So the research shows over and over again how much we change our thoughts as our healthcare changes. Any thoughts about that personal directive? Okay. As I say, it's been a really good discussion starter with family because it's a very low key look. If I get sick, here's what I want you to do for me, and a way to talk about that. So in the step 3 in that getting started toolkit, this is an incredibly important part we sometimes overlook. Taking those documents and getting them into your medical record, and then starting a conversation about how you're feeling today and what's ahead for you. Make sure we're sharing those documents. Sometimes people can get them uploaded to their patient portals. Always a good idea because then a lot of people can see them. And the whole idea of doing this planning is to make sure you're getting the care you want right now, today. It is a conversation starter with your physicians about how you're doing. I think we have that slide. Here's how I'm feeling today. Here are the goals I want to talk to you about my current care. I mean, what we all try to do with our doctors, sometimes it's just hard to do it in the time that we have. But how those medications are working, how you're feeling, what can you do to make some adjustments? How am I feeling today, and what's ahead for me is a big question. Many of us think about that. How is this going to work for me going forward? And what we find consumers tell us more than anything is they feel like they need a little more information about what's ahead, what's in front of them, what the treatment options are, what life's going to be like, will they need help or not, that kind of ahead. And that's something you can talk about not only with your care providers, but with anyone else to start making that plan. So that's part of the putting it into action. There are conversation guides. This is the guide we talked about, that consumer guide. And this is what's been, this got all curated with people telling us what's important to them. So this is the 5 things to talk about with your care providers. We just put it into 5 categories. What you see on the left in the blue language, those are your rights. That right to make information, the right to information to make choices. Sometimes that first question is all you need to start a conversation. You just want to understand more about your health and your illness, and here's what I want to know today from you, is a really pointed question. And then, of course, what's ahead for me? The goals, what worries you? What is it you want to work on in terms of goals of care conversations? Making a plan with these documents. So that, why do we do this? So that people know our choices, or the people around us, important people in our lives, as well as our doctors, and how we make sure those choices are honored. It's tricky when you're sick, as some of you know. So putting this in place can really help. Okay. So I just want to, again, I'm going to stop in a minute and see your other thoughts, but just to hit home here that this plan belongs to you. Often the documents will come from our doctors or the hospitals, and they feel like they own them. It's nice that they gave it to you, but you own this. Under the law in Massachusetts, this is your document. So you can make sure you have an original and can keep it. As I said, you can make copies, as many as you want. They're as valid as the original, but try to keep their original. It doesn't matter that much, but it's nice to have your own original so that you can change it. That's the beauty of this, is you can change your mind. As long as you have that ability, you can change people. You can update your choices in that personal directive. And you can share it with anyone you want. Often we think it just has to go to certain people. It should go to the agent, anyone in your family, any friends, anyone you want to know what to do, what happens if you get sick, and of course your doctors. So I wanna go through some of the Get Started Toolkit. I'm checking time here. How are we doing on time, everyone? We're getting close, right? I know you all just said something, but it came out as a group, so I'm not sure what it was.
We're
But-
getting close on time.
Yes, okay. So let me go through those two documents. The Next Steps Toolkit is on the website and it has a lot in it. Mostly it has conversation guides for you. This is what they look like. We start with that simple conversation and we can build on those conversations. And again, they've been something that consumers have offered us as questions that they like. So take a look. And then you can add to your planning documents, right? We have a healthcare proxy, we have a personal directive. The durable power of attorney this is what you have. Michelle gave it to you. It's the fact sheet. Really important to do and think about because it really can avoid a mess later on in life. Want to make sure someone is there and able to be your financial decision maker, sign contracts for your care, be able to reach into your bank account to pay for that care. Take a look at it. This is then there are two more medical forms. This is the Comfort Care Do Not Resuscitate Order, known as a DNR, right? And this has been around a really long time. It just does one thing. You do this with your clinician and you agree with your clinician that, look, I'm very happy where I am in life. And if my heartbeat and my breathing stop, I do not want you to resuscitate me, but make me comfortable. Give me care. That's what this order is. It's a doctor's order. So the doctor, you sign it, the doctor signs it, and so that everyone follows it. And this is the MOLS form. So about 10 years ago, 14 years ago, this came into the state, and it takes the DNR order and puts it in this form and adds two more things. So same thing, you talk with your clinician about your current care and prognosis. You make decisions. You say, what are the benefits and risks if my heart and my breathing stops tomorrow, given my illness? Now, this is only for folks who have a serious illness diagnosis. It's not for everyone. And then you make those decisions. The order is signed by you and your doctor. And again, this is something that goes into your medical record and everybody follows. And you can change this. You can change any document you want.
You're saying you don't do this document unless you have most people don't do it unless they're in a serious illness?
Yeah. That's its purpose. And in when the state came in, when this came into the state, and it's in every state, it's made for people with serious illness who have that life-limiting illness. We're not doing this in advance, right? Because we don't know in advance. When we have a serious illness, my dad did it when he had a very serious heart condition and COPD, and he was struggling. So he was in the final phase of his life, and that's when he did this order to say, I know what this feels like now. I want to talk a little more about the benefits and risks of being resuscitated. When he heard about those risks, he said his choice was, no, don't resuscitate me. That's where you have to be to do it.
And Ellen, that's just for the MOLS form, right?
That's
Which
just for the most.
the neon pink form on the back.
That's right. You have that pink form. So you can't fill that out, right? You just have a sample, which is great for you to have. But if you were, someone at this point of life, you go to your physician and you say, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about life-sustaining treatments and I want to do this form.
Thank you, Ellen. And just to keep an eye on time, we're about 3 minutes over.
Okay, we're done. You've all been pretty nice. But we wanted just to tell you, everything is on the website. Thank you so much for your questions. I'm going to stay on a few more minutes if someone has a question they would like to ask. And I think, Michelle, would you like folks I think Reverend Will has, I'm gonna kick this to him right now. I think he has something to.
Yeah, I have a closing prayer for us, but if anyone has another question or two, and if someone needs to leave, feel free to do that. But I think if you're willing to stay for a moment, Ellen, we'll
Sure.
just see if there's other questions.
I'm good.
And also then after Will
Right.
does the closing prayer, if anybody doesn't have a healthcare proxy form, but knows who they would like to appoint as their agent and wants to have it, signed here with 2 witnesses, we can do that. So
Yes, we really encourage that
They
because
ask
that
whether
can
you'd
be a roadblock to actually getting the thing done and submitted as, oh, I can't find 2 people. So if you have the time, if you can, please stay over even for just 5 minutes and get that signed down because you have lots of witnesses here. Susie, did you have?
Yeah, I just had, so years ago, I don't know if Ellen knows about the 5 wishes.
Yes.
And I just found this absolutely invaluable with my parents. You can download it. It's very easy to sit and, I know dealing with parents, we're all very, open to filling out the things that you have. My parents, of another generation, were not open to talking about these issues. So the 5 wishes was really good. It simplified things. I sat them down. It took like 15 minutes for them to go through and give their wishes for end of life. And I just highly recommend it as kind of a simple version for dealing with that generation or with my parents. And the other thing was dealing with the other end of the generation, my younger sons. There is legalzoom.com, which they find much more friendly to go and do their power of attorney and healthcare proxy online for like the 20-somethings, 30-somethings. LegalZoom.com. You do need it notarized, but it just appealed to them more to.
Thank you. Any way to get it done is good with me. Just remember the laws that we talked about still apply no matter what we're doing. So even if you're doing something online, we can't sign or witness online. We have to download it, do that, and put it back up. In the 5 wishes, we just want to be careful that many states, the 2 to 5 wishes are legally binding on the doctors. In Massachusetts, it's not. And sometimes that's a confusing message in that document. So as long as you remember the law, you can just do whatever works. Other thoughts?
Anyone else?
I do have one question, if I could just, so you mentioned the agent, and that sounds like a single individual, but if you have a couple of siblings, let's say, for example, who you could envision maybe not reaching an easy agreement about some of these issues, do you have any advice about best practices on where to sort of kind of memorialize some of these ideas that could help avoid tension down the road if, there wasn't an emerging consensus about what to do, for example?
Yeah, family is tricky stuff. So
It was theoretical, it might be.
Asking for a friend.
well, I'm one of 5, so I understand the issue. But here's the thing. This is it's very hard at the end of life to get people to agree. There's so much going on for people personally. So the idea is, as one gentleman said to me, he had to pick a coach. He had to pick, or he had to pick the quarterback, either one of those. It was football season. And when he explained that to his brothers, that I need a quarterback here, and then I need you on the rest of the team. And so what that meant was he was able to choose one person as the agent, but what he wrote in his healthcare proxy was in consultation with the team. So the idea was that quarterback still had the power, had the final say, but everybody's voice was going to be heard. You can also make everybody alternates at the other people. That's what I did. And as alternates, the trick is that if they need to be able to make one decision if it comes to that as well. So just to be careful with that. But that's why it's really important to pick one and explain the why ahead of time.
Thank you, Ellen, so much.
Thank you all.
So, yes, thank you, Ellen, and just want to end with bringing us from the very practical down into the spirit, and close with this word from John O'Donohue's To Bless the Space Between Us, the Book of Blessings. And all of this is leading to our deaths. And we are acknowledging that and remembering that and being okay with the fact that we all die, right? And so this is a blessing for the dying. May death come gently toward you, leaving you time to make your way through the cold embrace of fear to the place of inner tranquility. May death arrive only after a long life to find you at home among your own with every comfort and care you require. May your leave-taking be gracious, enabling you to hold dignity through awkwardness and illness. May you see the reflection of your life's kindness and beauty in all the tears that fall for you. As your eyes focus on each face, may your soul take its imprint, drawing each image within as companions for the journey. May you find for each one you love a different locket of jeweled words to be worn around the heart to warm your absence. May someone who knows and loves the complex village of your heart be there to echo you back to yourself and create a sure word raft to carry you to the further shore. May your spirit feel the surge of true delight when the veil of the visible is raised and you glimpse again the living faces of departed family and friends. May there be some beautiful surprise waiting for you inside death, something you never knew or felt, which with one simple touch absolves you of all loneliness and loss as you quicken within the embrace for which your soul was eternally made. May your heart be speechless at the sight of the truth of all belief had hoped, your heart breathless in the light and lightness where each and everything is at last its true self, within that serene belonging that dwells beside us on the other side of what we see. Amen. Amen. Go in peace. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.